So recently I posted a video showing the autofocus performance of Canon EF lenses when mounted to the S5 II, and the results were fantastic. I'm sure a lot of us were surprised at how good it works. But of course, there's a completely different area of shooting that I have not covered, and that is photography with the S5 II when using Canon EF lenses. And let me tell you now, the results might shock you. So getting straight into this topic, I just want to tell you guys some of the technical difficulties that I found when using the EF glass with the S5 II. And one of the biggest and most sort of noticeable ones for me was actually the way that the shutter sounded. And I know what you're thinking, why? So basically, when you take a photo with the S5 II with the EF glass mounted to it, the shutter sounds a lot slower and almost a little bit laggy compared to shooting with native glass. And what I mean is that basically the sound of the shutter actuation, so it closing, the sound, is a lot slower. And I actually tested it with the EF glass and then, you know, side by side it with some of the Panasonic glass, and I'll put it here now so you guys can hear the difference. So what this basically means is that for some reason the shutter isn't really acting as it should do even when you crank up the shutter speed. So for example, I did actually take some shots at like say 1/4000th of a second, for example, which is a really fast shutter speed, and that should give you crisp results. But even then, the shutter sounded very slow to sort of actuate with the EF glass mounted to the body. And even though the shots were coming out sharp and, you know, absolutely fine, they looked absolutely, you know, as they should do when shooting with those sort of settings. With a shutter closing that slowly, or at least sounding like it was closing that slowly, it did leave me feeling a little bit worried about what my shots were going to turn out like. And in terms of the actual autofocus speed, I would say that it was definitely a little slower than the native Lumix glass, which of course is to be expected because you are putting a DSLR or a lens that's made for DSLR cameras onto a mirrorless camera using an adapter, and of course all the electronic communication has to sort of go through a middleman, if you like, which is the adapter, to then reach the camera and vice versa. So I was expecting it to be a little bit laggier, and to be honest, like, the results were absolutely fine. But like I was saying about that whole shutter issue, that was definitely the thing that held me back. It actually made the shooting experience a little bit scary compared to just shooting with normal native glass. Of course, like I did say, I have spoken to Lumix about this, and it seems to be an issue with the firmware of either the Lumix S5 II or with the adapter itself, so the MC21. But I did check, and I am running the S5 II and the MC21 on the latest firmware versions, so there should be no issues there. But of course, what we're doing here, guys, is we're trying to make, you know, the new tech work with a sort of old tech, if you like. So there is going to be some things that might be lost in translation as such. And yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I experienced when using this sort of combination. I'm not really worried about this though, if I'm being honest with you guys, because I know that Panasonic are really good with coming out with firmware updates that improve their products all the time. So chances are that if this has already been flagged to Lumix themselves, then they are already working on a solution to fix this issue. So I don't think there's actually any issues with the sort of end results that you get when using this combination. It's just how it feels to shoot with. And you know, ultimately I was out doing street photography up in London with this sort of setup, and with street photography you sort of need to be quite quick and on the fly with things, and I do feel like that using the Canon glass on the S5 II definitely slowed me down quite a bit. Of course, not to mention the fact that the Canon EF glass is massive, it's huge, it's heavy, and then when you put an MC21 behind that as well, it also makes it a little bit more cumbersome when you have such a small and lightweight you know, camera body that it's mounted to. In case you guys haven't seen the video where I test the autofocus but for video with a Lumix S5 II and EF lenses, then I'll leave it links up here. And also, if you are looking to get into the Lumix ecosystem in general, I've got loads of videos about the best way to set up your camera for the most optimal experience when shooting both photo and video, so definitely go and check those out too, and hopefully I shall see you over there.